Do you think, mate, that it's possible to generate and live within alternative social models? Do you think that there's an appetite for it? Do you think it's possible for people to transition from a society such as the one we're describing into any kind of alternative model? Or do you think the G-force whiplash wrench of coming away from the sort of the electromagnetic teat of this consumerist system might buckle us up and render us disabled for any potential alternative future?
Really good question, because we live at that hinge point right now.
Also, there were some good words in it, weren't there?
There were some fantastic words in there, Russell.
Some of it didn't even make sense.
But we do. We live at one of those turning points where people need to decide what to do. Because yes, the power of society, the power of culture, power of government with our money is a crushing force, and it does operate a kind of brainwashing system through the media, through the education system, which is about making people passive, keeping society calm, keeping the wheels of the economy turning over. But it's not about the realization of the individual. I think it is possible to change this. I think people are doing it for themselves without anybody telling them what to do. Again, maybe this is happening more in America than it's happening elsewhere. You and I first met on a ranch in Utah, and down there they have an amazing program of permaculture going on, sustainable agriculture, getting rid of all the pesticides, learning from the beavers. Can you imagine that? The beavers are teaching them how to manage water management on the land. They're integrated with nature in a good way, so people can do this, but it's got to come from individual initiatives. It's not ever something that can come from the center, because if it comes from the center, it's just repeating the same mistakes that we've made all along. Position I take is the model we have now is broken. The most important thing to do is to criticize it clearly and show up its faults and errors, and to show them up in a way that doesn't push people's buttons, because the system has inserted buttons in people that get pushed. So it's very difficult to argue against nationalism these days, for example. If you argue against nationalism, it immediately pushes a button and people get very upset and very angry, because it seems it would taken to be an automatic good thing to take pride in one's nation and to be a patriot. I personally don't think it's a good thing, but I can't tell you the amount of unpleasantness I've received for saying it's not a good thing. And that's the moment where I need to say, when I don't like nationalism and I don't like patriotism, I'm going to say this to those who are going to attack me for saying this, it does not mean that I want a world government. I do not want a world government. I want less government, not more government. But we have to understand we're all one family. We're all brothers and sisters. It's absurd that we should be more loyal to people who by accident were born on the same piece of land as us. It's absurd. It's a mistake. We need to grow out of it.
It's wonderfully complex and adept how our innate tendencies to connect with, say, for example, tribalism has been transposed onto a nationalistic model. I suppose I was thinking about it then. I think a lot about ethno-nationalism because of what's happening politically at the moment, and I feel like I really admire people that are willing to stand up for what they believe in and get on the streets almost in any capacity. And I can see that if, for a century ago and for centuries preceding that, we were bombarded with the idea that this is a nation, this is a real thing, your grandparents are going to die for this, and that there's been so much blood spilled in telling us that this is real. And I suppose in terms
about blood spilled and nationalism, I don't know if you came across the poet Wilfred Owen. He was a great war poet of the First World War.
They forced us to read him in secret.
Cool. Me too.
I liked him. He was a highlight.
A line. He died on the last day of the First World War. He was killed in the trenches. Beautiful poet. And he wrote a poem seeing a young man dying in the trenches from poison gas. And the last lines of that poem were just the old lie. Dulce et decorum est pro patria mori. It is sweet and honorable to die for one's country. Wilfred Owen saw that as the old lie that we have been told again and again and again and again and again. What's getting confused is our natural commitment to community. Community is not nation. Community is a different thing. Culture is not nation. We can glorify and respect and value cultures without diminishing other cultures. We can say that this is great in this culture, I value it, but it doesn't mean that that culture is less. The problem with nationalism is it's all about saying our nation is best and other nations are less good. And if other nations threaten us, we will kill them and destroy them. Who are we? Look at Britain today, divided absolutely down the middle. Is there one nation in Britain? No, I don't think so. I think there's multiple nations in Britain, which boil down to multiple communities. It's only meaningful at the sense of community. Is America one nation? No, it's not. It's divided by a huge schism down the middle. So in what sense is it even useful to speak about nations today?
Well, I suppose my sense is that the people who benefit from sovereignty and national systems no longer have any legitimate and genuine belief in those principles, but it's sort of a convenient way to corral people into.
Very convenient. It presses those buttons. It presses those buttons, which I suspect go back to tribalism and the deep origins of the human race, and they're still in us. But if we're going to move forward as a species, it's a cliche, but we really do have to realize that we are all one family, and that a child suffering in Mexico is really no different from a child suffering in Britain.
Thanks for watching this podcast and going all the way to the end of it. Would you so kind as to click the bell, it might not be there, because over there, and subscribing so that we can infiltrate your serenity and peace of mind with jangling bells and buzzes. Thank you.